The train screeched to a halt under a gray April sky in 1943. The rusty doors of the rain and mud-soaked cattle cars slammed open. As the women stumbled out into the cold and frost-caked mud, they were met by the roars of barking dogs and shouted orders in German. Among them stood Stanislawa Lesczczynskie, a 46-year-old Polish midwife from Łódź, clutching her daughter Sylwia's hand. Their passed down names of their ancestral pride were soon erased and replaced with the numbers 41335 and 41336. The gates of Auschwitz-Birkenau closed behind them in a thunderous yet ominous war. You see, long before that moment, Stanislawa's hands had brought life, not death, into the world. Born in 1896 in the industrial city of Łódź, she was the daughter of a carpenter and a factory worker. Even as a child, she was marked by her resilience. Her father had been conscripted into the Tsar's army in early World War I, while her mother labored 12-hour shifts to afford to send her to a Polish private school where the language of her nation, that was banned by the Russian rule, was still spoken in secret. After a 2-year family stay in Brazil, she returned home, finished school, and married Stanislawa Lesczczynskie, a printer with patriotic ideals that matched her own fever. As the First World War ravaged Europe, she endured occupation and poverty, but she never lost her gentleness or faith. In the interwar years, she trained as a midwife, graduating with honors in 1922 and devoting herself to mothers and infants in the crowded tenements of Łódź. And when Nazi Germany invaded Poland in 1939, Stanislawa continued to serve her community, but compassion became resistance. Her family would smuggle food and forge papers for the Jews trapped in the Łódź ghetto. In February of 1943, she and her daughter were arrested by the Gestapo and sent to Auschwitz. Her 2 younger sons were deported to the Mauthausen-Gusen labor camps, and her husband would later die in the Warsaw Uprising. Arriving in Birkenau's women's camp, she was assigned to the infirmary, a misnamed collection of wooden barracks no more than about 20 feet by 30 feet, crawling with lice and rats. One of those huts, Block 24, served as the maternity ward. It was a long, sagging structure with a trough-shaped brick stove running through its center. The stove was never burned, as fuel was reserved for the SS, and when rain fell, water rose knee-deep on the earthen floor. Women would lay 3 or 4 to a bunk on straw blackened by blood and excrement. The stench of disease, typhus, dysentery, and gangrene filled the air. Here, Stanislawa became the camp's midwife. She had no instruments, no disinfectant, not even soap. Her entire medical supply was a few aspirin tablets a day for 1,000 women. Yet, she worked tirelessly, night and day, delivering babies on the cold bricks of the stove, washing them with water carried in buckets from outside the block, She would whisper prayers over each newborn, small invocations of dignity in a place designed to, well, strip it away. At first, she was alone. Later, she would receive help from a handful of Polish prisoner doctors, such as Dr. Janina Figierska and Dr. Arbina Konoskina, themselves malnourished and sick. All they had to treat their patients was a handful of aspirins and their own great hearts, she would later write in a medical journal. The mothers who came to her were skeletons wrapped in rags. Many could barely stand, yet life insisted on being born. All the babies were born alive, Stanislawa would recall, and they all wanted to live. But the camp had no place for babies. You see, until May of 1943, every child born in Auschwitz was murdered immediately. 2 German women prisoners, Schwester Clara and her assistant, Schwester Fanny, both sent to the camps for committing infanticide, carried out the killings. After each birth came the sickening sound of gurgling and splashing of water from the adjoining room, and then silence. The tiny bodies were thrown outside, where rats as big as full-grown cats would devour them. Stanislawa could only pray beside the mothers, whispering to them that their children had been baptized with their first breath. After May of 1943, a cruel distinction emerged. You see, babies born with blonde hair and blue eyes were seized and sent on a cloud for Germanization, to be raised as Aryan children under new names. The rest, Jewish, Romani, or simply dark-haired, continued to be drowned or left to starve. Preparation was slower, quieter, but no less deliberate. Mothers had no milk. Babies sucked at dry breast until they died, their skin turning translucent like parchment. Only about 30 infants lived to see liberation. Despite everything, Stanislawa refused to comply with Nazi orders to kill or neglect. And when Dr. Joseph Mengala himself, the camp's notorious angel of death, demanded she record the numbers of mothers and babies who died under her care, she told him calmly, yet deliberately, 9. He sneered. How could there be no deaths, when even German hospitals lost so many? But he could not refute the statistics before him. Against all odds, no mother or child died in childbirth under the hands of Stanislawa. The midwife's compassion became her quiet act of rebellion. She began to secretly tattoo identification marks on infants taken for Germanization, hoping that one day their true families might one day find them. She shared her own bread ration with new mothers, or used it to part for scraps of cloth, so the babies could be wrapped in something cleaner than rags. Because washing nappies was forbidden, mothers dried them on their own bodies, hidden beneath their striped uniforms. Sometimes, after birth, SS guards would call a woman's number for execution. Once, a mother from Vilnius was summoned moments after giving birth. Stanislawa tried to intervene, but only enraged the guards. The woman wrapped her baby in paper, pressed it to her breast, and waited to die. Stanislawa was unable to do anything but stand beside her and pray, as both were taken away to die. It is hard to tell, she would later write, which was more tragic, the death of the mother and child together, or the mother's agony as she died first, leaving the baby behind. For 2 years she endured this work, delivering life in the heart of death. In the midst of the camp's calculated cruelty, she and a few others preserved something unbroken: the belief that every human being, no matter how condemned it was worthy of love and care. In January of 1945, as the Soviet forces approached, the SS began evacuating Auschwitz. On the 26th, the women's camp was liberated, and Stanislawa refused to leave until the last of her patients was safe. When she finally stepped outside the barbed wire, she carried with her the memory of over 3,000 births, most of them extinguished. But all of them, in her eyes, were holy. Returning to Lodz, she found the city half ruined and her home occupied. Slowly, she rebuilt her life afterwards. Her surviving sons returned from forced labor camps, and she resumed her work as a midwife at a local hospital. Each time she delivered a child, she whispered a prayer over it, thankful that this one would live. She never sought fame or reward, and when survivors gathered in Warsaw in 1970 and marked the 25th anniversary of Auschwitz's liberation, she attended quietly, surrounded by mothers and grown children who owed their lives to her defiance. 4 years later, on March 11th, 1974, she passed away peacefully at home, aged 77. Today, in the city of Lodz, a street bears her name. A school for obstetricians in Krakow honors her memory. The main road through Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial Site is called the Aleja Stanislawa Lesczczynskie. And in 2015, the Catholic Church opened her beatification process, which is the first step toward declaring her a saint. Her story is not one of miracles in the supernatural sense, but of a miracle of conscience. In the most inhumane place on earth, Stanislawa Lesczczynskie remained human. Her hands, scarred by years of work and frost, caught each newborn as if it was the first child to ever enter the world. She proved that even in Auschwitz, life could still answer death, and that love could still speak louder than hate.